Okay, so it's been a while since I've uploaded a deck build. The first one and only one I've done is the Harpy Lady deck build, which has seen some revisions since, but I didn't want to do just another Harpy Lady build. What I'm doing today is one of my all-time favorite archetypes, the Spirit Charmer or Familiar Possessed archetype. I absolutely adore it. I think what they did with the structure deck that came out, I think it was last year, was absolutely phenomenal. I'm a big fan of it. Now, keep in mind, this is a pure build. You're not going to see 3 Ash Blossoms, 6 Infinite Impermanents, and whatever else, Effect Veiler. You're not going to see that. You're going to see Appaloosa in here. You're not going to see Link Karibo. You're not going to see Boral Sword, anything like that. You're going to see, as pure as I can keep it, a Familiar Possessed / Wind Charmer deck build. Not Wind Charmer, sorry, Spirit Charmer. This has seen many revisions. I think this is the most unique build I've seen yet, and I'm very proud of it. I'll get into it without rambling too much, but this is a very unique build. I don't run any of the small monsters like Gigabyte, Renryu, Nefarious Archfiend. I don't run any of them, and I'll show you why shortly. So for the extra deck, because it is all pure, Win the Wind Charmer, Area, the Water Charmer Gentle, Lina the Light Charmer, Lustrious, Alsa the Earth Charmer Immovable, and Heater Fire Charmer Ablaze. Very rarely do I actually use these. These aren't overly that great, in all honesty, but the best one's probably Lina, the Light Charmer, just because a lot of the great cards that you're going up against are generally going to be light monsters, light or dark, depending on the matchup. So she's generally going to be the one that comes in handy the most if you just need to snatch a light monster from your opponent's graveyard. But generally these aren't going to be too great, but they're nice to have a one-of. Waiting for, I think it's Dark, the Dark Charmer. I don't know if it hasn't been announced yet, but I assume if they've done Lina, the Light Charmer, they'll do Dark as well. Okay, so for the monsters, like I said, very pure. That is the extra deck. That is all it is. I don't think you need to run multiple copies of any of them because the Heart and Soul is the main deck. So I will start with 2 Familiar Possessed Wind, 2 Familiar Possessed Heater, 2 Familiar Possessed Area, 2 Familiar Possessed Alsa, 2 Familiar Possessed Dark. Now, these are the Familiar Possessed monsters I run the deck. I don't run Lina, the light version, so this is Dark, the dark version. I run 2 copies of Fairy Tale Luna and 1 copy of Fairy Tale Rochka. Now, these are the monsters of the deck. As I said, very unique. I don't run Gigabyte, Renryu, Nefarious Archfiend, any of the Awakening of the Possessed monsters. I feel they just brick way too often, even if I drop them down to 1. I am running a beatdown / control deck. Little bit of control, but it's very consistent. Now, besides these Fairy Tale monsters, these here are all basically vanilla monsters. They can't get their effect off because we don't run the Charmer monsters in the deck. It's just the Familiar Possess. But I wanted 2 of every different attribute: Wind, Fire, Water, Earth, and Dark. I wanted as many different as possible. And the reason I don't run Lina, Familiar Possessed Lina, is because these 3 are light. You've got 2 Lunas and 1 Rochka. Now, it's like these 2 here were made to be played in a Familiar Possessed deck. These are the only outer archetype cards I run for monsters. Like I said, you don't see any Ash Blossoms, anything like that. Luna is pretty much ran in every kind of Spirit Charmer deck because she has 1850 original attack, so she works with everything. She's a spellcaster, works with everything, and it's just a good bounce in case you need it, but mainly it's for the search. So you normal summon Luna, you're wanting to search the right attribute that you need at the time, and I'll tell you why. Rochka is a good one-of. You can drop Rochka if you'd like and run maybe a 3rd Luna or not at all. But I think it's a decent normal summon, 1850 original attack, just like all the Fairy Tale monsters, but its great effect gives you a +1, basically, on its summon, allows your opponent to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 to your hand. So, great. Doesn't matter what card they choose, it's still a card in the hand. And this deck does great with being able to draw, and this kind of goes into the theme of it. But all spellcasters, all 1850 original attack, these are the monsters for the deck. It really is that simple. They're all essentially vanilla monsters, and it is immense beatdown. I'm always surprised with how well this deck does. And there are 3 cards in this deck which really make this deck stand out with vanilla monsters, really like pseudo vanilla monsters like this. The first one is my favorite card in the structure deck, playset of Awakening of the Possessed. This card is insane. I adore it. My favorite card in the entire deck. It allows monsters... I'll bring this down, sorry. It allows monsters like Alsa to be that much, a little bit stronger. So you run 1 Awakening of the Possessed. You have it on the field, a continuous spell. This will gain 300 because it's Earth. Each different attribute will gain 300, and it will stack. So if I have Alsa and I have Dark on the field, all of a sudden they're gaining 600. So it doesn't seem too much, but off a normal summon, 2150 is not bad. Get 2 of these on the field, which is very easy. All of a sudden, you've got 2450 off a normal summon. But where it gets really, really exciting is when you have 2 of these on the field. All of a sudden, 1 of these is gaining 600 by itself. 2450 off a normal summon. You have 2 of these on the field. They're gaining 1200 for 3050 each. This very quickly gets out of hand because your opponent just never expects a pure Familiar Possessed Spirit Charmer deck and pure beatdown. The one issue with Warrock was it didn't do much beside the battle phase, and I will show you that this is much more than just beatdown, but this is very, very strong beatdown, something that I think Warrock can't keep up with, and a lot of other beatdown decks can't keep up with. The immense pressure with Awakening of Possess and just constant different attributes, which is why I run so many. This right here would be gaining way too much for your opponent to handle if you've got 3 different attributes. And Familiar Possess has 2 other card effects. Charmer monsters and Familiar Possessed monsters I control can't be destroyed by card effects. And the great thing about this is obviously these are all Familiar Possessed, but all of our Link monsters are always treated as Charmer monsters. So even they can't be destroyed by card effects. They're all different attributes. They're all spellcasters, 1850 original attack. And the reason why that is important is because Awakening of Possessed gives us a draw every time a spellcaster with 1850 original attack is summoned once per turn. So every single turn, we're going to be summoning a spellcaster with 1850 original attack. We're going to get a draw. That draw is just once per turn. But the stacking effect of the attack, it's not a once per turn, but it will stack. And the reason why this deck is so consistent, a lot of it is due to Fairytale Luna. Always being able to search a different attribute Familiar Possessed monster makes this deck really, really strong and consistent. So Awakening of Possess, in my opinion, is absolutely a 3. That's why I only run 2 of each of the attributes, because I do want as many different attributes as possible with the Familiar Possessed monsters. And I think 2 is that perfect ratio for this. But this is definitely a 3 of if you're going to play this variant of beatdown/control. Very, very consistent build though. The other card in the deck, which came in the structure deck, is Spirit Charmers. This is an insane in-archetype card. Discard 1, add 1, set 1. It is that good, that simple. Quick play as well. I don't know why you'd really want it to be quick play. I guess you can use it in certain situations, but this card is insane. The amount of consistency this card alone brings. I was talking about this card and how having the draw in your turn, your opponent's turn, and I'll show you how shortly. But draw power plus search power. Basically, what you're going to be doing with Spirit Charmer is, in this build, is always set Awakening of Possess to then activate it and get any of the attribute Familiar Possessed monsters that you want from your deck to your hand, or one of the trap cards I'll show you shortly. But Spirit Charmers is an absolute must at 3. It's single-handedly one of the best consistent cards in the deck by far. The next one I run is Grand Spiritual Art Ichiran. I have mixed feelings of it. I don't necessarily think it's a great card, especially for a field spell, but being able to negate your opponent's first monster effect activated per turn can be quite strong. And the powerful thing, when these monsters start getting really, really powerful and tanky, and your opponent isn't expecting it, it kind of throws them off a little bit, and they can accidentally go into and proc Ichiran without them initially wanting to bait it. This can be a powerful card if your opponent's just off guard. Not the best card, But it's good to have. You can definitely tech this out, and I'll pop this to the side shortly so I can give you a couple ideas of what to tech this out for, which actually might be a bit better if you're wanting to spend a bit more money. The other two is 2 copies of Fairy Tale Tales. This basically just guarantees us an additional normal summon every turn. Will normal summon an Elsa, and if we control the Elsa and we have, say, area in the hand, we can normal summon the area. But the really important thing about Fairy Tale Tales is it's not just an additional summon, it's an additional normal summon. Fairy Tale Luna only gets their effect when they're normal summon. Rochka only gets the effect when it's normal summoned. So it's important that we're not special summoning these, we are normal summoning. And I don't think there's a way to special summon these in the deck anyway, but Fairy Tale Tales just guarantees us different attributes on the field every turn. It's insane what this card can do for us with just the constant normal summon every single turn. It does have a secondary effect where if we control a spellcaster with 1850 original attack, first time we would take damage, that turn we take 0. So it does help us stay in the game a little bit longer. Great card, definitely not a 3 of, because it will brick. I think 2 is a good ratio considering we can't search it. Next 2 is Spellbook of Knowledge. Basically just tribute a spellcaster monster. Any of these, draw 2. Just draw power on the deck because draw power is quite hard to come by. This is, I guess, more of a budget build. I'm not running Pot of Posterity and whatnot because it means I have to run a lot of outer archetype stuff, which I don't want to do. I want to keep it as pure as possible. Spellbook of Knowledge, great card. Recommend running it. Definitely not a 3 of, 1 to 2. 3 bricks way too often because we're normal summoning so much and we don't have immense special summoning power. If we open 2 of these in the hand, 1 of these are going to be dead because we can't afford to keep tributing our monsters. So definitely a 2 of, I think. One of the coolest tech cards, which I found, Magical Dimension. So this deck, as you've probably seen, inherently doesn't have a lot of interaction with the opponent. We have vanilla monsters, basically. We do have Luna. Luna's okay, but the fact it has a bounce itself as well isn't the best, and it can be bypassed quite easily. Magical Dimension is a pretty damn good card. So if I control a spellcaster type monster, target 1 monster I control, tribute that target, then special summon 1 spellcaster type monster from my hand, then destroy 1 monster on the field. So Luna is always going to guarantee us we're going to have a spellcaster monster in the hand. We have draw power on the deck with Awakening of Possess. We have draw power with Spellbook of Knowledge. So it basically it's a quick play. We play it as a trap essentially. We want to disrupt our opponent with this card. And the beautiful thing about this is it will also proc Awakening of the Possessed. Because if we use it in our opponent's turn, it's another way for us to get an extra draw with Awakening of the Possessed. Because every monster we run will proc Awakening of the Possessed. So I advise running Magical Dimension if you just want that extra disruption. Just being able to get draw power, destroy a card on the field as a quick play. Really, really good. I definitely wouldn't run it at a 3 though. Run a single copy of Terraforming for Ichiran. Can definitely tech this out. I'll pop this with Ichiran and I'll explain some other cards you can run instead of this. This is more just to mill the deck, trying to get the cards I really, really want. I run 1 copy of Monster Reborn, just because I do want to have these on the field. I want the right attribute on the field. I want as many different ones as possible, and a lot of these will be in the graveyard because I'm pitching them there. So definitely advise running a Monster Reborn. Back row removal is Twin Twisters. We don't ever want to run into a Solemn because we're using our normal summons and we rely on them so heavily. If this gets Solemned, well, we're kind of screwed. So get rid of back row removal. That is the name of the game right now. Twin Twisters, I think, is enough. And the reason I think that's enough, it is probably, well, definitely the best trap in the deck. Possessed Partnerships came in the structure deck. I absolutely adore this card. Basically, special summon 1 spellcaster monster with 1500 defense from my hand or graveyard, which is every single one of these familiar possessed monsters. It won't be any of the Fairy Tale. Fairy Tale have 1000 defense, so this is the only card which actually doesn't work with the Fairy Tale monsters. But every single one of these familiar possessed monsters all have 1500 defense. So always a target. We're going to have these in the graveyard. We're going to have these in our hand, guaranteed. So it's a free special summon. But the beautiful thing is if we have 2 or more attributes when it's summoned, we get to destroy a card on the field. So this is just disruption, summoning power. Will also proc Awakening the Possessed in our opponent's turn if we need it to. So an additional summon, additional consistency, really, really good. It can banish itself from the graveyard to play a face-up Possess spell or trap, which if this has been destroyed in the graveyard, you can bring this back. And the next card can also bring Unpossessed back. I run one copy. I think one copy is enough. This will brick. It basically just allows you to float one of these into another, which can proc Awakening of the Possessed if you already haven't. But it just keeps bodies on the field, which is what you want. You want to make sure that your familiarly possessed monsters keep a really high attack boost, because a lot of decks aren't tailored to, deal with really high attack monsters just off normal summons. So this is a good card. Not great, but I definitely think it's a one-of, because it can definitely frustrate the opponent when they're trying to, if they get rid of one of these, all of a sudden the remaining familiarly possessed monsters you control, their attack drops. But this definitely stops that from happening once per turn. So definitely run this as at a 1, and these all will proc Awakening of the Possessed. So run 1, definitely run this at a 3. It's disruption, it's consistency, it's draw power with Awakening of Possessed. Really, really good. My favorite tech card in the deck, Dark Renewal. So when your opponent normal or special summons a monster, target one of those monsters and one spellcaster monster you control. Tribute that one, tribute your opponent, and special summon one dark monster from my graveyard or deck. So special summons from the graveyard or deck, and this is always going to be dark. It's the only target for dark. Great. It's non-destruction removal. It's great. We're always going to have a spellcaster on the field. It's great. This will also proc Awakening of the Possessed, which is really, really good. Additional draw power, non-destruction removal, extra body on the field, procs Awakening of the Possessed. Just happy days with this card. Definitely a 2-of. I don't think it's a 3. I think it'll brick, because you do want to start seeing more of the spellcaster monsters in the hand, but this can definitely disrupt your opponent if they don't plan for it. So I love Dark Renewal in the deck. Last 3 cards. Solemn Warning. I would say Solemn Strike is the much better card. Solemn Strike's just a bit more expensive, so I just run Solemn Warning in this deck. But yeah, definitely run Solemn Strike in here. We don't have a lot of interaction. Like I said, these are essentially just vanilla monsters. So we want a Solemn Strike. We want a Solemn anything, just Solemn anything to get rid of that one summon that could turn the tides in your opponent's favor. So definitely run 3 Solemn something. Solemn Strike would be the best way to go, but I've just got Solemn Warning in here because it is the cheaper variant and still decent. Now, touching on these aren't great. I run Terraforming basically just to mill my deck a little bit. Can be pitched and stuff with Spirit Charmers, the spell card. But you can definitely tech these out. You can take this out for anything you want. But these 2 initially, if you don't want to run these at all, there are 2 cards which I think are absolutely perfect in this deck. The first one is Mind Drain. I don't have it here, but Mind Drain, basically, it's a trap card, continuous, pay 1,000 life points. All monster effects that activate in your hand are negated. And this one will be Skill Drain. Pay 1,000 life points, negate the effects of all face-up monsters on the field. So this basically just enhances decks that play pseudo-vanillas like this. These don't do anything on the field whatsoever. So a Mind Drain would prevent you from being ashed. A Skill Drain will prevent your opponents from doing anything. They would mean they have to swing over your monsters, and these can very quickly get to 3,000, 3,800, 4,000, 4,600. It's insane what these cards can get up to very, very quickly if your opponent isn't prepared for it. So yeah, I definitely advise, if you don't want to run these, run the Mind Drain, run the Skill Drain. There will be better trap cards to have to help lock down your opponent. That is pretty much the deck build. It is definitely beatdown. It is definitely has interaction. I feel like a lot of the other builds I've seen, they're limited by just not wanting to go out of the box. They want to run the smaller monsters. They want to run Awakening of Possessed monsters, and I don't feel they're very good. I feel like this is super consistent, super original, brings beatdown back, and a lot of these cards that you saw in here, like the Possessed Partnerships, is phenomenal because it's interaction in your opponent's turn, which Warrock don't have at all, unfortunately. But cards like this, really separate the deck, and these are just always super surprising at how strong they can get. So that is pretty much it for the deck build. Like I said, I tried to keep it as pure as possible. When my friend Tyler and I play, it is pretty much just casually competitive. We run combined, I want to say 20 to 25 decks, and they're all pure builds as much as they can be. And this deck has seen immense success. It's a really, really fun deck to build. And I encourage you, if you're after wanting to see what this deck can do in a casually competitive format, and you're wanting just something unique that you've not seen before, I urge you, just try it. It'll be really, really fun. This is definitely one of the most fun decks I have. I play Drytron, Eldritch, Sky Striker. You've seen my Harpy deck build. There's a lot of super consistent decks that this deck can go toe-to-toe with and surprise. So definitely advise running it. If there are any tech cards you think I should run, definitely let me know, because I'm always wanting to improve this deck as much as I can. But that's pretty much it. Thank you.